The liquidation efforts involved thousands of military as well as civilian personnel. Power plant operators, firefighters, engineers, miners, scientists, even excavation brigades and construction workers. Now, they are all collectively known as liquidators. Their name came from the Russian official definition. Uczestnik likwidacji posledstwi awarii na czernobylskiej atomowej elektrostacji. Hello guys. Last time we started the introduction to the Chernobyl exclusion zone subject. It was the first part of the basic information, so if you haven't seen it yet, it would be a good idea to catch up after this episode ends. Today we are going to cover the second part of basic information, but definitely not finishing the whole miniseries. Every major part of the zone will be explained. Some of the names come from Ukrainian and/or Russian languages, so it will be a necessary mini-series for you to understand what part is where and why is it important. Also, keep in mind that we published an additional episode yesterday about the Chernobylite Complete Edition. Check it out later and don't forget to visit our homepage on Steam afterwards to grab a huge discount. Let's start today's episode. Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. Part 2. The Expansion. Mapping and expanding the zone. The first exclusion zone didn't exist long. Its job was to protect all liquidators from unnecessary danger in the vicinity of the destroyed Unit 4 building. But as days passed and the first liquidators were regularly checking the radiation in the area, more detailed radiation mapping was conducted. This uneasy task had a shocking outcome. It revealed the complex pattern of radioactive deposition. Despite they knew that this accident could be the most dangerous one in the whole human history, this pattern was far more alarming than they anticipated. It was influenced by many factors, but there were two crucial ones: the weather conditions and the physical properties of the released isotopes. Weather was, if I can quote it, not great, not terrible. But definitely, Ukrainian spring can sometimes be a windy and stormy season. This was also the case during this accident. Radioactive particles were carried away by both high-altitude winds, often mixed with clouds, and then brought back onto the ground by rain. This created a necessity of its own, but regarding the zone, the conclusion was simple. Its boundaries have to be adjusted, and there should be subzones created to maintain the radiation spread. Access to different subzones, black, red and blue, and was granted based on the task a liquidator had to perform during his stay in the zone. But the radiation measures inside a particular subzone were another concern. They also limited a fairly safe amount of time anyone could stay in it. They also defined how much protective gear should a liquidator use when in different subzones. The black zone, located immediately around Reactor 4, received the highest levels of contamination and was closed off completely, only accessible to military and cleanup personnel. The 10-kilometer red zone included areas immediately surrounding the power plant, where radiation levels were exceedingly high. Residents were permanently relocated, entry was heavily restricted, and it hasn't changed since back then. The 30-kilometer blue zone. This wider area included towns and villages where the radiation levels were significant, but variable. The evacuation protocols and restrictions were more dynamic, based on ongoing assessments. The evacuations. So, as you may see, the creation and expansion of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant's zone of alienation had far more consequences than just geographical ones. The adjustments done because of the detailed radiation mapping not only created a necessity of guarding the subzones more intensively, it also determined who should be relocated from their homes. The problem with the evacuations was what I could call a classic USSR issue. They were carried out in stages which were often completely illogical and almost always chaotic, especially because of the lack of clear communication between the liquidators and the affected populations. The people living there, and there are still many, were completely unaware of the risks, not to mention the question of their understanding of radiation exposure. They were not informed about the time of evacuation. They often didn't know about it at all. They were not told about the very probable permanence of the relocation. The numbers differ greatly depending on the sources, but it is estimated that over 100,000 people were permanently evacuated from the broader area in just 1986. But it didn't stop there. Additional evacuations were continued for years, especially in places where there was no radiation mapping before. If the ground contamination was confirmed in the new spot, the residents there were forcefully evacuated. The initial cleanup efforts. When the zone was created, maintained and expanded due to necessary adjustments, there were simultaneously massive cleanup operations carried out. They are known today as liquidation, hence the word liquidator. Despite the official reports the USSR released to the world, which you shouldn't believe as they gave them the propaganda number, the liquidation efforts involved thousands of military as well as civilian personnel, like power plant operators, firefighters, engineers, miners, scientists, conscripts, soldiers, and even excavation brigades and construction workers. Now they are all collectively known as the liquidators. Their name, as well as the whole disaster response, came from the Russian official definition of these efforts. Uczestnik likwidacji последствий awarii na czernobylskiej atomowej elektrostacji. They worked under extreme conditions to contain the spread of radioactive materials and decontaminate affected areas. There were many dangerous tasks, but I have to underline the construction of the first sarcophagus, or a safe confinement. It's a massive steel and concrete structure to encase Reactor 4 and contain the remaining radioactive material, currently covered by the second sarcophagus, completed in 2016. There were hundreds of thousands of liquidators. They worked tirelessly to prevent the deadly radiation from spreading. Despite none of them could be blamed for the disaster personally, thousands gave up their health or even their lives so we could be safe. Oleksiy Ananenko, one of the power plant workers and a liquidator, said that he counted that the Chernobyl disaster, the way the USSR responded to it and how badly was it prepared, claimed the lives of 40 to 50,000 people in just the first decade after the disaster. We have to understand the tragedy of all those people. Imagine being literally dragged out of your apartment without any notice, and after you were given 5 minutes to pack your whole life's belongings into one suitcase. You would probably be furious. But nobody would do it to hurt you, rather to shield you from the radiation. People carrying out those evacuations, usually soldiers and young conscripts, didn't know much more, and were just trying to protect the residents of the zone. If you were in their position, what would you do? Would you let those people stay knowing that in a few weeks they could be suffering from acute radiation syndrome and possibly dying on their own floor? If you ever think of criticizing any people involved in the post-Chernobyl cleanup, please be sure you at least try to understand their perspective, the times when it was happening, and the system they were living under. I think this covers the introduction part of our Exclusion Zone miniseries. Be sure to share this video with your friends. Nothing helps us as much as feeding the algorithm. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will try to answer them all. And watch out for new episodes. This week will be much more interesting because we have additional 2 videos prepared, with a third one optional. Take care, stay safe, and see you next week.